What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sales Remastered. My name is Daniel. I'm your host, and on this episode, we're going to talk about cold calls and scripting, something to make the engagement sound much more smooth, and how to entice that person to give you more attention, to give you more information, more details on what they would consider buying. And so hopefully this content, this information, I've dropped plenty of videos already about outbound calling and outbound dialing, outbound origination, and different strategies and techniques you can do on your outbound efforts. As a matter of fact, about a month ago, I did an entire week on outbounds. It was called Outbound Week. and those videos are located in the playlist at YouTube. You can find them also on the Facebook channel. If you go to the Sales Remastered group and you click the video section, you could search the title, and all you have to do is search outbound. So you can pull it up if you're on Facebook, if that's your thing. But if you like to listen to it on the Bluetooth on your way to work, or maybe during your lunch break or at your desk, then you can find it on YouTube also. But there's content there, so go check it out. If this is your first time visiting the channel, I ask that you please subscribe. If I've earned your respect, if I've earned your admiration, you feel that I can bring you some value. And if you like the video, all I ask is that you like it, you comment on it, let me know what your takeaway was. And if you ever want me to tailor some information out for you, you know how to contact me. All the links are below this video. So let's get to it. So I had a follower contact me, and I think they found me on Instagram, I believe it is. And they're telling me that they're somewhat new to the industry, or at least somewhat new to real estate sales. And his job right now is kind of like his intermission, or his training is for the first 30 days. He has to call out on leads and connect them with a loan officer. So that's kind of his way of earning his seat, right? And so that's kind of like his test run. And so he reached out to me. Let me see if I can fix this right quick. And he reached out to me. He was like, "Yo, Daniel, I've been watching your stuff. I appreciate all your videos. Very inspiring." And he asked me, do you have any ideas about outbounding? I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of ideas, send him a couple video links. But I thought I'd make an updated copy, an updated one given current market situation, and how can you build this type of excitement to a prospect, because you're outbound dialing them, right? And so I want to first start off with just breaking it down to a process. Anything successful has its own process. Anything successful, from entities to business plans to corporations to even sports teams, there's a specific system that makes them different. There's a reason why certain teams win so many times. It's because their entire system. So all the players are synced into that system. There's a structure, there's a protocol, there's a policy, right? And so if we understand it for that, then we can give ourselves an advantage, because we're not just going in not really knowing what we're trying to do. And so let me put that in perspective for you and apply it towards outbound originations. When you think outbound originations, or you think the word cold call, like let's say your sales manager says, "Hey, go make some cold calls," or "Hey, do some outbound calls," or maybe you're getting hit up on your on your KPI reports, and you say, "Hey man, all you did was dial out this many times this week." And it becomes hard, right? Like, we get fed, or at least we were wired to expect leads to come to us in a specific way. And typically this way over the last couple of years has been through a dialer, or been transferred through a customer service representative. And so now things are changing. It's a little bit slower on the dialer, right? Anything that does come through the dialer, about 99% of them either don't qualify, don't want to talk, or didn't even know they're being transferred. And so we're inviting ourselves. We are positioning ourselves to meet that resistance. We are putting ourselves in line of that, battle. And so the question should be, well, how can I make this a little bit more easier, right? And so this is how. Number one is you understand it's a process. So have a plan, have a process. Plan number one is, I did a video on this. Plan number one should be to make a set amount of calls per day. And these are outbound calls per day. And it's nothing extravagant, right? It's not like, you have to dial 100 numbers. If you do have to dial 100 numbers, just be prepared to do that. But your main goal is to actually make 10 new connections. 10 new connections, meaning, you know, if I've never called this lead before, but they've talked to my company before, or they talked to some agent before, but never me, like I've never attempted to, you know, do my tap dance for this particular lead, that's a new connection, but I have to connect with them, right? So if I called that particular lead, this new connection lead, and I called them 10 times the first day, that's not considered an outbound because you didn't make a connection. Does that make sense? So you have to change the way you look at the word outbound, like your outbound dials. Like we hold on to the word dials, right? Like when's the last time you dialed anything on the phone? Like literally from our cell phone to the phones we have in our office. Everything's like on the computer now, right? Hey, you might be one of them old school cats, so you might have one of them rotary phones. You got them rotary phones, don't lie. Anyway, if that's you, that's cool. But either way, you still need to make attempts. Those are considered attempts. Like I'm dialing, right? Like I'm dialing, attempting. But if you made 100 attempts and you only made one connection, really you just made one outbound dial. At least that's in my perspective. That's how I look at it. And when I look at it this way, I'm not counting every single attempt. I'm counting only the connections. And so there's a grid that I used to use, and you know what? I'm gonna put something together and I'm gonna have it readily available at the website. If you haven't checked out the website yet, salesremaster.com, go check it out. Go download that free script. That script, number one, is gonna help you with the idea of how to take control of the conversation, whether it is outbound or inbound. It just happened to be a little bit more compatible for inbound. But with this video and with these extra techniques, you can flip that script into an outbound call. So let me show you how. So number one, understand that there's a process. Step one of this process should be a set amount of contacts, connections. And so if we set it at 10, we're going to do whatever we need to do to make 10 new connections. Even if you get 10 new connections with 20 dials, you're good. You just need 10 new connections. Of those 10 new connections, you want to be able to at least establish some sort of engagement, some sort of rapport. Not all of them are going to be ready to refinance though, right? So of these 10 new connections, and in this current market, you might very well just find out 8 of them can't do something until X date. But that's okay. That's what CRMs are for. That's what Outlook's for, right? You got calendar reminders. And so maybe if I talk to John Jones today, but John Jones can't really do anything because he's about 3 months or 6 months out due to seasoning, it doesn't mean that I lost on John Jones. It just means that I'm going to set up a plan with John Jones, and I'm going to check in with John Jones, and I'm going to remind John Jones when that 6 months comes to play. Right? But in the meantime, in the interim, I'm going to bring value. I'm going to help John out, whatever I can. On the flip side, of those 10, you might find 1, 2, or maybe even 3 of them, right? Like a small pocket of those 10 are willing to do an application. Doesn't mean that you're going to pitch them though, right? So you go through the application, you find out, oh man, John Jones' sister, Susie Jones, like, man, I pulled her credit's just too low right now. Or DTI is just too high right now. And, you know, at the end of the day, you still need to know your products. You need to know your programs. Your products and your programs become paths. And so, excuse me. And so when these leads, when you engage with this lead, your goal is to bring it down a specific path. And if you don't know your products, if you don't know your guidelines, your nuances, your niche products, if you don't know what doors there are, what paths there are, you may not know what all the paths, right? And so that could be an issue. Maybe you just don't know what direction. You probably didn't know that path was even there to even start that conversation. That ever happened to you? Like you learn a guideline, you're like, oh man, how long's that been around? And then you find out it's been around for like fucking 8 years. And you're like, damn. And then you start to think like, man, I could have got that lead. So if that's ever happened to you, this is why product and program awareness is key. You need to know what direction to give them at. So once you figure out what those paths are, and you sync it with a system, and you start getting these contacts, and let's say of these new connections, about only 3 go to an application, you're ideally of those 3, you should have at least 1 or 2 pitches, right? Because the main goal is to make 1 sale per day. And as you go forward, these points per se, like my team, we run off of a point system. Every single day, my team is aiming for a dub, like double up. And so their points, their actual points, are locks and elevations, submissions, right? And so one person One person who's on their game can get a dub in 1 day or 2 days from the same file because they locked that file and then they elevated that file, right? Well, what you locked yesterday becomes a point the following day as long as your system is tight, as long as your scripting is on point, right? As long as the momentum is right. And so every day you now aim for a dub. You're not aiming for 20 for the month, right? Because you're not worried about the month. You're worried about that day. And so that day, you're just going to restart from the very beginning and say, okay, here's my system. I need to make 10 new connections. Of these 10 connections, I should be able to pitch at least 2 or 3 of them. And of those 2 or 3 pitches, I need and I will sell at least one of them. I will get an engagement of at least one of them. And regardless if this took you $100 attempts or if it took you $30 attempts, the bottom line is now you know what to aim for. And so now it's all about the scripting, and I'm going to cover the scripting with you. I'm gonna go inside, grab my coffee. So I'm probably going to do the outbound scripting on a different video. But this is key. It's the process. It's knowing what to do and having kind of an outline system in play and ready to invite these leads, right? And so that's key. I believe that's more important than the scripting, because at some point you're just gonna come across people that want to talk. Like, they're ready. They don't care. Just like, all right, well, what you got? And the key is making sure that you don't fall in that trap. You don't fall in the trap of talking to someone who never deserved your time. You don't fall in the trap of pitching someone that should have never been pitched. And so this is why the system's important, because when you get that connection, it's important that you understand what to do with that connection in order not to sacrifice your time, in order not to build up your anticipation, your excitement, in order for you not to block off an hour in your calendar for this one person and miss out on opportunities of someone else who deserve the block on that calendar. Because if we asked the right questions, or if we did a little bit more probing right in the very beginning, we would have found out this person should have never been on my calendar. Does that make sense? So we have to let things not blind us. Things not blind us like the hint of desperation from a prospect. To us, to a salesman, that sounds good. It sounds like a sale. But sometimes it can be the exact opposite of that, right? Another thing that can blind us is our sales tiers or a loan amount. We might see the upside and the commission to it, and so we're going to do everything that we can to give it a good old college try. We're going to give it a go. I'm going to do everything I can, and sometimes that everything I can means I'm going to stay another hour. I'm going to stay another 2 hours. I'm going to call this guy another 4 or 5 times. And what happens is every single attempt that you try to get that one magical loan amount or that one magical tier, or that you're anchoring it to that. And so every single time you don't make an attempt, psychologically, subconsciously, you're telling yourself, damn, I didn't get that tier, or damn, I didn't get that loan amount. And that becomes a defeat. And so the trick is, well, how can I put myself out of way of defeat? And the way to get yourself out of the way of defeat is break it down to its bare bones. Have a system, have a game plan, and go in knowing what to do on the next round. If you want to know what the script sounds like, you want to know what that opening sentence sounds like to get their interest and get them motivated to talk to you some more, hit subscribe. Check out the next video. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments, leave them below right here. Leave the comments below on the video. It helps me play this algorithm game so that I can get put on recommended videos. I can be one of those videos on the side of your YouTube that says, hey, go check this dude out. He's fucking handsome. He says a curse word or two, but this boy knows his shit. They could be talking about me, bruh. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.